people believe that when you buy a bond, you're only going to get your 5% payment on that. That isn't necessarily true. Okay, there's a very simple calculation that's done, and it's called a bond duration calculation. Dave, and it's good to meet you. Anyways, let's go ahead. We're going to be talking about bonds and how you can make 50, 60, 60% plus on bonds. Bonds are not nearly as difficult as a lot of people like to believe, and there's a lot of resources out there. Now, what I'm seeing coming is a bond mini bull market, probably over the next few years. And I want to explain how bonds work. I want to keep it simple. I want to keep with government bonds, make life easy. You know, we're going to be talking about expectations of the Federal Reserve. What do you expect the Federal Reserve to do? I'm of the camp that Federal Reserve is going to be lowering rates probably towards the middle or end of next year. Okay, when they start doing that, the value of your bonds that you purchased now are going to go up, which means if you go ahead and you purchase a bond today and you decide to sell it in 2 years when rates are in half of what they are or 3% down, depending on the calculations. We're going to show you a couple of versions of that make it very simple to understand. When you have a high bond yield, the price of your bond is down here. Now, as bond yields start to go down, the price of your bond value goes up. Now, this is done exponentially with the length of the bond. So if you're in short-term treasury bills, those types of bonds, the amount you're going to make is quite dramatically less than if you're out on the 30-year bond. Okay, it's just a matter of time, and it's called duration. But duration is also a technical term in the bond world for explaining various risks associated with bonds. So there's some terms you need to understand. You need to understand duration. You need to understand coupon and coupon rate. You also need to understand if the bond you purchased is a brand new bond that's getting you they call it 4.7% on the 30-year if it's brand new, or if it's a recycled bond, so there's 25 years left on it. So I want to show you just some basics on it, enough to where you could strive in confidently if you have a thesis on rates, where rates are going, on what to do with those bonds. Okay, so we'll get started in on that. Okay, there's some other things you need to understand too. You don't necessarily have to buy a bond through your broker. TREASURYDIRECT.GOV is where you can buy treasuries directly from the federal government. You can also buy them through your broker, like I had mentioned. I also need to let you know that corporate bonds will react very differently in financially tough times. Those rates will go up on you, and we'll get involved with understanding that in a later video. If you buy them through your broker, there's fees associated with it. If you buy them through the Treasury Direct account, there's less fees associated with it. So you can save a little money on the front end of that and dump it into your investment brokerage account. So basically, when you buy the Treasury, you put in your brokerage account information and it'll get deposited there for you. So anyways, let's go ahead and we're going to jump into a little bit of the math, which is very simple, very basic. I'm going to give you some resources to look at in that, so that way you're not looking at me like, well, I don't know where to go from here. I'll be including a link to the bond duration calculator that I'll be using. They're all over the internet. So here we're going to start you out with a very basic calculation of a bond. This is going to be a calculation mainly for your Series EE bonds, government bonds. Very basic, very simple. This calculator I just pulled up off the internet. I've checked to make sure that it's accurate. You may want to do that. You may want to reference a couple of them just to make sure you're on the right track. Anyway, so we'll start out with a $1,000 bond. Okay, so you got $1,000 here. You put it into this bond. Now, the current rates on a 10-year, which is the basic we're going to start with, is a 10-year bond. Right now is at 4.5%. Okay, now down here, those bonds are paid semi-annually. You may have to come down and pick out, if you're choosing a different bond, what it is. Right now, we're doing government bonds, which are paid out semi-annually, which is twice a year. So twice a year, you'll receive a payment for $22.50. Okay, that doesn't seem like very much, but you know, in today's world, some money is better than none. And so once a year, you'll collect a total of $45 right here. Okay, now this is where things start to get a little more interesting. Down here, we're going to put down, let's assume you've held this bond for 2 years. So there's 8 years left to maturity. So years to maturity. And let's put in there's 8 years. Okay, and now this is where the magic starts to happen. All right, so let's assume we're going into a recession and J. Powell starts lowering rates and people start buying bonds and bond rates start going down. And it drops down to the yield to maturity is now on a 10-year bond 2%. Okay, so this is basically what you're going to put in is your 2%. Now, if you look at what your bond price, your value is you're looking at, you just made another $183.93 if you were to sell that bond immediately. So you're looking at it now, you'd make $183.97. That's a lot more than the $45 that you're getting yearly. I mean, that's 4 times as much. So you're pulling forward all of that value. So now you can take that money, that $183 plus the $90 you've already made. So you've made 27% profit on this bond in 2 years. So you made 13.5% as an annualized rate. That's actually pretty impressive. Okay, it's not exact. We'll quibble over 0.5% or whatever the hell it is in there. But anyways, but that's just to say you've got the same $1,000 bond. You paid for it. You get a 4.5% coupon rate, which is your coupon rate. You're getting your same payments. Everything's changed. But now you bought a 30-year bond instead.
Happy New Year!
Wow. I mean, you're now at $534, and that's in 2 years, plus your $90. So you made 62, almost 63% in 2 years. So your annualized rate on that is what, 31%? That's a pretty healthy return. And so I'm of the theory that we're going to be going into a bit of a recession. Rates are going to come down. And I don't think 2% is off the mark. Of course, I'm just speculating. I'm guessing to the best of my abilities of what it's going to look like. This is not investing advice. This is educational purposes. This is purely for you to understand what we have going on with bonds. So now, in all fairness, let's take a look at the risk. So let's just say that we went ahead and we bought this bond at 4.5%, and bonds yields have gone up. Okay, let's say we've got some surprise inflation. Inflation's coming up, or maybe people are assuming that the government bonds are too risky these days because government debt. Whatever the thesis is on that. But now we come in here and bonds have gone up to 6.5%. Let's see what happens there. So we type in 6.5. Oh, damn. Now we can only sell that bond for $743.63. So we paid $1,000 for this bond, but now if we need the cash, we need to do whatever with it, we can only sell that bond for $743.63. Now, mind you, you still had your coupons, so you had $90, so you've lost 17% on this. So you just have to be aware of the risks. If bond yields go up from the point you bought this, so you got it at 4.5%, and bond yields go up, you lose money on this. So you just need to be aware of that. These video series is basically just to give you the basic principles of values on bonds. Government bonds are the simplest to calculate. I mean, we can go in and we can get into municipal bonds. We can go in to get into various corporate bonds, corporate bond ratings, bond funds, TLT, those kinds of things. And those we'll be covering in the next video a little bit. I plan on covering bonds a little more extensively on my next video. So feel free to jump in, subscribe, like this video, and I would love to show you more about the bond experience and my investing thesis. Because I believe we can find alpha no matter where we look, no matter what the season is in the economy. I believe we can find alpha.